Well, welcome to the Dallas Film Podcast. My name is Tony Armour. I am the Dallas Film Commissioner, and today we're really excited to have gaffer and I'll say electrical super specialist Frans Wettering.
No. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Of course.
Well, so you're sitting in your car. Are you on your way
I am.
to a shoot right now?
You know, I got up right now. The only job shooting in New England is a James L. Brooks film.
Okay.
And it's so slow in Los Angeles that they brought Ian Kincaid, who I can't argue with bringing him as a gaffer. So I kind of don't really have much to do.
So I
just come and hang out and work as an electric a little bit just to get my hours for the union. I'm trying not to travel. I have a 14-year-old son, and I keep hoping that the industry will come back to New England.
Yeah, interesting. Well, before we jump in, I definitely want to talk about that and talk about the state of the industry and everything as well. But we should mention that you were the gaffer on the Holdovers, which is Oscar nominated, and so coming up this Sunday, March 10th. So congratulations for that. That's always a big honor when you can work on an Oscar nominated film.
Yeah. Yep. No, we're excited about it.
Yeah. And so I want to start with, a lot of our listeners we have, of course, are very film industry savvy people, but at the same time, we have a lot of people who are just fans of the industry. So for those people who are just fans and they see the credits and they see gaffer, but maybe don't know what that is, why don't you tell us exactly what a gaffer is and what do you do?
It's chief lighting technician. So we sort of have made it called a gaffer, but it's the chief lighting technician. So I essentially work with the director of photography to come up with whatever sort of look that he is interested in achieving. And I implement it and use my ideas to get to where he wants.
Yeah. And
so I'm in charge of all the guys that do that. And it's a little different here, but I work with the key grip and, put up whatever needs to be done as far as diffusion or negative or overheads or stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of people don't realize, people always think of director cinematographer as kind of crafting the look of a project, right? But they don't take into account that the chief lighting technician, you actually have creative input and are able to, kind of guide what the look of a film is as well. It's actually a very important crew position within the ecosystem of, creating a project.
Yeah. Yeah. And some DPs are a little different than others. Some really know exactly what they want and how they want it done. And I think finally I've gotten to the point where DPs come to me and they sort of trust, my intuition and what I'm going to do. So.
Yeah, that's good. Well, you have if we look at your IMDb, you have a long list of credits going back many years. I'm not saying that you're old at all because I am also also in my 50s now. So, but talk a little bit about kind of how you got started in the industry and sort of what led you down this path.
Well, I grew up in Southern California and grew up in a very creative family. My grandfather was an animator for Disney and people in the advertising world. And so I always knew that I wanted to be in the creative industry. And originally I wanted to be a photographer. And somehow it segued into film school. And I ended up going to Boston University and I went to their film school. And my lighting professor, John Gates, got me in the union right before I graduated from college. So it was like an easy transition. So I got into the union here in Boston in 481 and just worked all the time because he helped me and got me an internship, and I worked at a rental house and it just sort of steamrolled. And when the opportunity arose, I moved back to California and I got into the union there, and that's really where my career took off.
Yeah. And when you say career took off, as far as like feature film, television, and kind of moving in that.
Well, and you just meet more people.
Sure.
So at the time here in the early 90s, the film industry wasn't as prolific as it is now with the tax incentives and stuff. So there wasn't as much work.
Well, yeah, and
going to California,
and that's really interesting to talk about a little bit about is how the industry has changed since the 90s, right? I always say blame Canada. They're really the ones who got started with the whole tax credit thing that then everybody else had to chase it now. And it used to be you just went and shot because that's where the location was or, had the look that you wanted or whatever it might be. but it really changed over the years. Can you talk a little bit maybe about how that affected your career path and how things worked out for you as tax credits came on board? And it was like, oh, we're shooting this in Georgia, New Mexico, Louisiana, Texas, Massachusetts, how that evolution kind of came about as the tax credits became more important.
Well, it was tough because in 2007, they passed a tax incentive in Massachusetts. And at that time, it was pretty easy to shoot here. So a lot of the times they would fake New York for here. So a lot of jobs that shot here were originally shot in New York, were supposed to be shot in New York. But the infrastructure was so small and the crew base was so small that we still took a little while to get involved and get people to come here and not bring a ton of people. And it was a thing where for the first probably 6 to 8 years of my career, I traveled a lot. So I spent a lot of time working with one particular DP, and then as I had a child and stuff like that, then I focused more on working here. But it wasn't until the infrastructure really, there's rental houses, and we have some stages, and we have a crew base that can really do it. And the tax incentive is obviously very competitive. So, and we've had our ups and downs with the tax incentive, but now that it's solidified and it's not going anywhere, it's been crazy busy here.
Yeah, that's good. Well, and
until now.
As a film commissioner, my job is to bring projects to my area, which happens to be Dallas. And the three most important things, any project I'm talking to, whether it's an indie project or studio or anything, is always, incentives, crew, stages. And like you were saying, it takes time to develop that and to really build it out. And so you have to have a consistent tax incentive for many years for that crew base to know, okay, I can live here and actually work and not have to, travel around too much. I can be, everybody likes to be at home is what it boils down to if you can.
Yeah. Well, and your position is so important. We had a film commissioner here, Lisa, who was phenomenal. And she was here for a very long time. She originally, I think, came from New Mexico. And now we're in a position where we're in flux and we don't have somebody that I think has the experience to go out and talk to studio executives and really sell the state. So that's something that we're working on because your position is so important for states like ours as well.
Yeah, it really is. Not to talk about me too much. We're here to talk about you, but it is a different kind of job, right? It's I think of it a little bit like quarterback in the NFL. There's only 32 of those jobs, right? And so there are only so many film commissioner jobs around the country, and you can really tell the ones who know what they're doing and are doing a good job versus the ones who kind of slid into the government job because the department doesn't know what to do with the position. And they're like, well, you're in the government office. And now you're film commissioner.
Yeah, correct. Exactly.
Yeah. And so you ended up back in Boston, obviously, because you went to school there and you were in the union there. When did you go back to Boston?
So full-time in 2007.
Okay. That's full-time.
So I sort of split time between the coasts, and I started a rental company here in 1997 with a business partner, and he was working in New York and I was working in LA, and our gear was shipped all over the place. And then in 2007, we were able to really, have a full-time staff, and, we sort of started to stay here and buy massive amounts of equipment. And, now we're a big rental company, but
that's great. That's great. And you've obviously seen the industry grow quite a bit. What are obviously now the Holdovers shot in Massachusetts, correct? Yeah,
correct.
So I guess that's a good segue to talk about that particular film. Which one? I love the film. I've enjoyed 99% of Alexander Payne's films that I've seen over the years. It's really just been a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
And I'm actually friends with John Jackson, who was his longtime casting director from his first film all the way up until just a couple of years ago when he kind of basically semi-retired from casting. So always loved his films. And when I watched The Holdovers, I would have sworn when I was watching that film through the whole thing that it was shot on film. Like I would, until I got to the end and I watched the credits all the way to the end, because that's what us film nerds do. And I saw that it was, and I'm like, oh, they shot that on digital. Well, they did an amazing job making, because sometimes you can tell when people do the fake film look as opposed to actually shooting on film. So will you talk a little bit about, what it was like lighting and shooting that film to really achieve that film look?
Well, it's sort of interesting. I mean, everybody says that well, I guess not everybody, but people say that they approach digital differently than they approach film. And I just have never done that.
Yeah.
So I grew up shooting film, and I still tend to work on a lot of movies that shoot film. So I just light it the way I normally light it. And, I think he chose specific lenses and some Panavision lenses that actually helped, the look.
Mm-hmm.
And shot it in a way that made it feel like it was on film. And then obviously Alexander ran it through whatever process he ran it through. But, I try to approach it the way I would approach anything and do it the same. I always tend to light the same way, film or video.
Yeah, and it's interesting. And I noticed too, obviously because the story takes place early 1970s, there were some choices with zoom lenses and things like that gave it that sort of 70s feel. And so maybe, like you said, when it was shot like film and it was shot as sort of a period type of piece and shot in the same manner you would shoot, a period film, that probably helped a lot, giving that impression that it was a film as opposed to digital.
Yeah, and it had a very small budget. So in the beginning, Eigel kept saying we want to use old school tungsten and try. And I was like, why would we do that? Let's just use the tools that can help us that are going to be cheaper and make us able to do this faster. And, we try to give Alexander as much time with the actors as we can. And I think it ended up paying off. I mean, Alexander is an incredible, not just incredible director, but an incredible man. And one of the very few people I would say I would do anything for.
Oh, that's always good to hear. You hear stories. Yeah. There's always stories about people, but I think for the most part, like you said, most of the people that work in this industry just want to work with other nice people and have a good experience. They're long days and they're difficult as they are. They don't need to be any more difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. No, the days were phenomenal, and working with him was great. And you knew you were making something good. And right after it, I did another movie, and it was a very big budget movie, and it's been panned. We might actually get a Razzie. So, it's I work on $150 million. Yeah.
I saw. Yeah. When I double checked your IMDb this morning, I was like, oh, Holdovers. And then should I say the name? Madam Web. Which,
right. Yeah. Very different.
Yeah. Two very,
but again, not a bad movie to work on. And we had a fun time, and the DP was fantastic. And, so it's just a different movie. I would much prefer to make 10 Holdovers.
Oh, sure, of course, yeah. And I think that's maybe something interesting to talk a little bit about. Is like when you pick a movie, right? Like part of it is like we started off talking about is like sometimes you just need a job. That's the industry, right? It's like okay, what's shooting where I'm at or nearby, and I need to work. I gotta feed the family and put gas in the car and all those other things. And you could have a great experience working on a film and really enjoy working with it. But sometimes it's not your choice on whether it turns out good or bad,
Yeah. And Madam Web is a perfect example. I mean, we had fun. It was very long. It obviously paid all the bills and stuff like that. But, it's, we tend to get the large features to come to Massachusetts because of our tax incentive. So, Madam Web just happened to be the one that year.
Yeah. So I guess you tell us a little bit about I know you're not the film commissioner there, but what are the incentives in Massachusetts? How does that work in MA?
So it's 25% across the board. They just changed it a little bit to make it so you had to spend more production days here, which I think is smart.
Mm-hmm.
And I see some of the other states are potentially following suit. But we have above the line, which is a big deal.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference. So, that's where Texas, I get a lot of phone calls, talk to a lot of people who want to shoot here, but the percentage is 20%. You can bump up to 22.5%, but there's no above the line. It's only Texas spend, which makes it really difficult for any projects, really.
Yeah, it is hard, and I think that's why we get a lot of the $100 million movies, because they have a large actor.
So. Yeah, that makes sense. And so you're based in Boston, right?
I'm based in Boston. Yep.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is, actors want to go to a city where they know there's something to do when they're not working. They don't necessarily want to go. Not to disparage Albuquerque, But, maybe a lot of people don't want to go to Albuquerque or Oklahoma City or somewhere that's perceived. Maybe the perception is that it's not like a big, cool city or something like that.
That's why Santa Fe right now is very busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Santa Fe, New Mexico's right now. I think they have tons of stuff shooting. So.
Yeah, New Mexico in general, and it's interesting. So maybe we'll shift a little bit to state of the industry. So obviously we had the WGA and the SAG strike, which killed everything last year, and really put people in a serious bind. Especially I think the below the line crew, right? They're the ones that really get hurt in something like that.
Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit about what your experience during the strikes was like? I mean, obviously, it's like, well, I don't have a choice.
Well, it's funny because we were supposed to start doing. There were two other features coming here. One was an Adam McKay film, and they kept saying, it's happening. We're going to start shooting in April. This is April of last year, and I finally I took a Netflix TV show, which I haven't done a television show in a long time, and they shot it like a feature. And thankfully I did, because that brought me right up to the strike and my whole crew up to the strike. And, but all those other films, the strike went too long. So those other films that got pushed, they all have either, went up in smoke or have been pushed indefinitely because of actor availability or whatever they say.
Yeah.
But, that was one of the few jobs shooting here the beginning of last year. And other than that, it's been very slow.
Well, it's funny that an excuse would be actor availability, because all the actors are available right now and they want to work. It's kind of what it boils down to. Nobody's working. Yeah. So I had mentioned, I think before we started the call, that I was just in Berlin at the European film market, and it was a pretty robust market for independent film. Like the small indies were driving a lot of the sales, because as far as streamers and studios go, from what I'm third party hearing from people, the studios are basically saying, we're not doing anything until August. We want to wait and see how everything pans out, and there's no point in even getting started with something until we know what we're doing, with potentially with IATSE, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that this, in this month, they'll get some sort of an idea of if they're either close or so far off.
Yeah.
And maybe that will help the studios. I think they would have a hard time at this point getting a strike authorization, but maybe. I mean, I know a lot of people that are in a lot of trouble. Yeah. So financially.
Yeah, and I think that's a problem, right? SAG and WGA were able to hold out as long as they wanted to, and then it squeezed the below the line crew, so that now below the line, you don't have the leverage that WGA and SAG did to wait that long. It's almost like, hopefully it's a good deal for everybody, but it's kind of like we just need to approve it so that we can all get back to work.
Well, and not only that, but SAG and DGA and all that, the writers and everything, that shuts down everything all over the world.
Yeah.
But an IATSE strike does not.
Yeah, you know what? You're 100% right. And that's the other thing that I've heard a lot of too. There's a lot of talk. And especially because I was, like I said, just at EFM, is, well, you know what? We'll just go to Europe. And as it is, we're losing so much business to Europe. It's really frustrating. I'm also part of Film USA, which is our National Film Commission Association, and one of the main missions of Film USA, bring production back to the U.S. What can we do to try and drive that production back to the U.S. and not have it run away to to Europe or anywhere else it's going to go?
Well, it's hard because you would hope that some of the actors would back us based on the fact that IATSE backed them, and they would say we're not going to go to, wherever they're trying to send. I mean, if a movie takes place in Paris, that's fine, but if it takes place in New York and they're shooting it at Budapest, let's try to make sure that doesn't happen. Yeah.
Well, and even, just talk about our neighbors in North Canada. That's, so much has been shooting in Canada for so long. It's kind of just customary for people to, we're going to Canada for this shoot. We're going to, wherever it is, Vancouver, Toronto, anything like that. And so educate me a little bit on this. IATSE is strictly U.S., correct? Does that bleed over into Canadian at all?
I think it does bleed over into Canada. I think there is IATSE in Canada. I don't know how their contracts are structured and if it follows suit with our contracts. But but they do have IATSE. And the other thing is, I think New York's contracts don't follow with our contracts. I think they come up later. So potentially you would see a lot of stuff go to New York because I don't think it would be affected.
It's interesting. And I think too that like if you're doing small indies, it's not the same as studio or, streamer kind of project. I think from my understanding, this contract doesn't necessarily affect smaller projects like it does essentially, larger studio projects.
Well, I think the Hollywood Basic Agreement and the Area Standards Agreement come up at a similar time. So even the smaller projects would get affected under the Area Standards Agreement.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. Well, we have our fingers crossed that by, I think, May is the date that I heard, sometime in May, which right around Cannes Film Festival, then, hopefully everything is situated by then so that a lot of deals can happen in Cannes and, projects can, can start moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's trickling forward slowly. I mean, there are some jobs going. I think they all know that they'll be completed before a potential strike would happen, and those are the jobs you're seeing that are going.
Yeah, I know there's a couple of big ones going right now, and some ones that had to pick back up after the other strikes are going, and that's probably about it.
Yeah.
Well, I want to shift gears for a second. You had talked about working on the Netflix series, and you said that they shot it like a film. Can you kind of describe how did they shoot it that it was unlike a TV series and more like a film?
So one director, no shooting it. It's not like we did an episode here and an episode there. Mm-hmm. We shot it, the whole thing like a feature all the way through. So there was no separating stuff as far as episodes and shifting directors or DPs or stuff like that. So
it sounds much more efficient than the usual TV process.
Yeah, and I think it was easier for us to do as a crew that's used to working on films too.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's kind of like making one really long movie, basically. Then, if you're talking, how many episodes was that?
I think it's 6 episodes.
What was the series?
It's called The Perfect Couple. It hasn't come out yet.
The Perfect Couple. Okay. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Perfect Couple and 6 episodes. So, man, whoever is scheduling that to have to schedule out, 6 episodes worth of kind of, normally you're doing a 2-hour film or whatever it is, it's always a challenge scheduling that anyways, but certainly would be, how long was your shoot?
It's 70 something days.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it was mostly in one location. It was at a big house, on the water. So predominantly, which helps. It was, it was sort of secluded to one spot, which also helped with the strike. We were hit last,
right,
with picketers, and actually people picketing that were on the Cape for vacation.
Really?
The writers are on vacation and SAG people are on vacation, but they found time to picket. So.
Well, I suppose they're like, well, we got nothing else to do. We don't want to
nothing else to do. Go to the beach, picket.
We don't want to enjoy our vacation. We'd rather picket instead.
Yeah.
So, and where are you on your way to today? Our commercial shoot?
Today we're working on the James L. Brooks film that's here in Rhode Island.
Okay. Yeah.
So.
Can you say the name of that film? What that is? Are you allowed?
I think it's called Ella McKay.
Okay.
So I don't know much about the film because I'm not terribly involved with it.
Right.
Again, the DP brought his gaffer Ian from Los Angeles, who's great.
Yeah.
So
good. Well, I obviously the hope is move on to the next project if hopefully things pan out quickly. So talk a little bit about your rental house. You're a full service rental house. You got everything, cameras included, or primarily all just G&E?
Yeah, G&E. We own a small commercial stage that's in downtown Boston.
Yeah,
which stays pretty busy. And then we have a very large stage that's 138,000 square feet, 260-something thousand square foot buildings.
That's good. It's a good amount of space. You since you went to film school, did you ever before you got in union right away, right out of college, right before you got out of college? Mm-hmm. Did you ever have that I want to be a director moment while you're in film school or a screenwriter or something? Like what was your focus while you were kind of going through school?
It was photography was my focus.
Yeah.
So I never wanted to be a director. Never wanted to be a writer. I'm dabbling a little bit with producing, trying to help people produce stuff, just solely because I have a lot of time.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because, I speak to a lot of film students, and, if you have a room of 100 students and 95 of them want to want to direct and
want to be a director.
Yeah. And you try and let people know, hey, there are a lot of other jobs on a film set that you can do, and there's only one director. But there's a lot of lighting people and grip, and hey, wardrobe is super important, and props, and all of these other creative industries within the auspices of making a film that are really important. Do you ever speak to students or schools or anything like that, and kind of go around and share your knowledge of the industry?
We used to do a lot of stuff with BU and Emerson when some of the people that I grew up under were still working there, and since they've left or retired, the schools have not done as much outreach as we have in the past, which is kind of a shame. But for a while there, we were doing a ton and letting people know that they didn't have to go to LA and New York. They could stay in Massachusetts and they could make a living here, or at least used to.
Yeah. Well, what is happening to grow your crew? Because that's a big concern here in Texas and all over the country. There's never enough crew, and so you're always like, can we get enough people in the area that we're in? So, are there any workforce development programs? Since you're not really communicating with the schools much, how are you bringing up new people in the electrical department to be able to work in the industry?
There's an organization here called the Mass Production Coalition, and they do a lot of education. So kids coming out of college can go to classes that they offer, and people in the union. I keep trying to do a lighting class, and somehow we can't find the time to do it. But they do a lot of continuing education to try to get people involved.
And do they so it's Mass Coalition, you said?
Mass Production Coalition.
Mass Production Coalition. Do they then work directly with the union where they'll say, hey, we have these people that just went through our program, let's get them in, as PAs on these different projects, and then kind of train them up? Is that how that they have like a pipeline?
Kind of. I mean, they normally approach people in the union to help do the classes.
Yeah.
So then when we do the classes, and they've done quite a few of them, and then they do PA classes, and then the PAs get, people, that sort of becomes a word of mouth, and people start to hire them, and they start doing, independent features, and then they sort of work their way up.
Yeah. And that's something that I think is really important, that is a complaint of mine. I've been in Dallas about a year now, came from Florida. I was film commissioner in Florida for 9 years there before getting to Dallas, is that the independent space is not supported by the incentive here. It's only 10% if you're under 3.5 million. And so nobody's coming. I've had to turn away. I've turned away a dozen projects because it doesn't make any sense for them to come here. But what you're really doing is you're not developing any new crew or young crew, and you're not developing your industry at all. If the only thing you're saying is, hey, bring your $100 million feature or TV series or whatever, well, how are you going to teach anybody to work on that project if you're not developing indies to go into that? Can you talk a little bit about maybe the independent film scene in Massachusetts and how that then supports, as these bigger projects are coming in?
I mean, there's so many colleges here that those kids, when they graduate from college, even if they want to go to LA, they usually spend some time here, and they want to make movies. They want to be creative. And Massachusetts, I don't know what the bottom is for their tax incentive, but I think it's pretty low. I think it's like $50,000.
Wow.
So, so a lot of people can qualify for it. And, as a rental house, we often will give equipment very inexpensively to kids that want to, make independent films or, do stuff, because it only helps me in the end, because I need people.
Yeah.
It's a win-win. But, there's a pretty big independent, film community here.
That's awesome. That's good. That's good to hear. I might have to reach out to the Mass Production Coalition just to get some ideas, since we're trying to develop a workforce program here in the Dallas area to train up crew. Dallas is super strong in the commercial industry. That's what keeps everybody employed and going. And now really the Texas incentive is not new, but newly has 200 million in it that's trying to drive stuff. Taylor Sheridan's going to do his best to use all of it on all the shows that he's shooting, and he's a big reason we have it. We have it now. I don't think we'd have it without him. So everybody's very thankful for what he's done to bring that here. But we do need those indies to be able to come through and kind of train people up and get things going.
And it's the production coalition also. They worked a lot and have all the big unions are on the board of the Mass Production Coalition. So they were actually very integral in keeping the tax incentive when we were having trouble with it, and doing the outreach and going to the legislators and making sure that it didn't go anywhere. So they've done a lot. And David Hartman, who's the guy that's our liaison with them, has been phenomenal.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you're saying, so does the state of Massachusetts, you have like an interim now, or you're getting a new person coming in for this at the state level?
We had an interim, and now we have somebody that's been hired, and I think they're trying to figure out, she's got to get out to California and introduce herself and do stuff like that to the studio executives and the production, executives. But it's a learning curve.
Yeah.
So we had somebody that had been doing it. Now this is new for her.
It definitely is. Well, you know what? I should reach out to her then from Film USA, because maybe there's a way that Film USA we can help, since we do represent the U.S. Trying to drive production, and we work with state film commissioners all over. Each one not to do a Film USA pitch here, but kind of what we do is we share resources. So if we're going to go to a big location show in London, there's 10 U.S. film commissions that all go and share the cost of it, because it's cost prohibitive for one film commission to go and have like a big trade show booth. And so, we try and do that as much as possible, even with, the International Film Commission Association, AFCI. So it's good. It's good we had this call, because now I'll know to reach out to her and have a conversation and see what we can do to help, basically.
Yeah, no, it would be helpful. Yeah, we need, the industry's got to change. I mean, it's changed anyway. Even without strikes, the industry has changed so much.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there was no streaming and none of that stuff when I started. So, it's there's just so much content and places to put it, and it's crazy.
Yeah, I was looking earlier. Like, how many streaming services do I have, and which ones should I cancel? What ones am I not watching that I can actually cancel these, and it's not going to affect me, because I feel like I'm so busy I don't have time to watch stuff anyways, and so it's like, why am I paying for all these different ones? I should narrow it down to 2 good ones or something like that, and not worry about the rest.
Yeah, I don't even know what I have. That's the crazy part. And some of them, I think I paid double for some. When you signed up for one, then you signed up for Disney. Well, Disney covered Hulu. Yeah, it's out of control. Yeah,
it's hard to keep track. Well, before we wrap up the conversation, I don't think any film conversation nowadays can avoid talking about AI. The dreaded, mysterious AI that's going to destroy the world and ruin all of our jobs. From a realistic perspective, what are your feelings on kind of the way that technology is going and how it's affecting our industry?
I mean, I'm thankful that I probably will retire in the next 10 years, but I don't think. I mean, people want to make movies.
Yeah.
I think it'll change maybe how we do things, but I don't think for the people that really make films, and are really love cinema, are going to say, okay, let's just have AI write it, put it together and use stuff that they found on the internet, and we have a movie. I mean, I've seen all those clips of stuff that people, the young kids run up and show me, and it's like, it looks terrible. So,
yeah, no, I agree.
Think sooner or later, it will get to a point where I'm sure it looks great, but you still want a director directing actors, and you still want, they're still going to make movies.
Yeah, and there's still something.
Is there going to be more AI content on the internet? Probably, but
yeah, and it'll be a tool within the filmmaking process, right? It's going to be used with LED walls and virtual production, where AI is going to create the backgrounds seamlessly, and it's going to look great, and you're going to be, but you still got to point a camera at it. You still got to put actors in front of it. I don't think AI will ever really replace actors. As photorealistic as you could make a fake computer generated person, it's not going to be. Even in 20 years, when the technology is indistinguishable from reality, I I still don't think it's gonna do anything. Like I said, by that point, you and I will both be long retired, and we won't have to
right,
have to worry about it.
But I mean, I don't think it's going to be a place where it takes everybody's job. I don't see it. I think it's just going to be another tool.
Yeah. I think of it in the same way as records. When the cassette tape came along, people were like, no one's going to buy records anymore. And then CDs came along and like, no one's going to buy cassettes and records. CDs will destroy it. And then digital came along and really did destroy, records and CDs and everything else. But now kind of vinyl's making its comeback and people really love, vinyl. And the industry will continue to evolve and change, but nothing's ever going to be completely eliminated, I don't think.
Yeah. I mean, it's like everybody said, film is going to go away.
Yeah.
And I tend to shoot 1 or 2 movies a year that's still done on celluloid. So
yeah, I love it. I still have I've got a Super 8 camera at home. That's why I started shooting my first films on Super 8. And I see it sitting there. I'm like, and I've got some film. I was like, I just need to go grab that and go shoot something because it's just so much fun, to shoot in that kind of format. Yeah.
Well, and you see all the DPs, they want the modern digital cameras, but everybody tries to get the old glass rehoused and all that stuff because you really need. Everybody wants to mess it up because it looks too perfect.
Yeah, it's too crisp. Yeah. Well, good. Well, hey, before we wrap up and let you get on with your day, anything else you wanna chat about?
Not that I can think of. I think hopefully Holdovers will do well at the Academy Awards.
Yeah, I
think
hope so
Oppenheimer looks like the big one, but I've been pulling. I was very disappointed to see Alexander did not get nominated for Best Director.
How does that make any sense, right? Best Picture, but not Best Director? Yeah,
it doesn't make it. And especially when it's him.
Right.
Like he should have been nominated. I was very disappointed.
Yeah, for a film like The Holdovers, like the Best Picture is because of the director. Like it is 100%. Yeah. It is more than just his handprint on it. Like it has been molded from clay exactly what he wanted to do. So well, you and I are not.
Yeah, and you look at Dominic, who was never an actor. He found him at the school.
Yeah,
and now Dominic is the rage and the new. And it's like that's what he does best. What Alexander does best. He finds these people that have raw talent, and now he's a superstar. His first movie.
Well, he did the same thing with Shailene Woodley on The Descendants.
Yep.
I remember talking with John Jackson, and when they were casting for that particular film, she was supposed to be 17 years old in that film, and so he wanted an actual 17-year-old in the film, and all the agencies were pitching him 25-year-olds to play a 17-year-old kind of thing. And he's like, no, I want a kid, someone who can really embody this. And of course, look what Descendants did for her and how her career took off after that.
Yeah. No, he's very good at that. I mean, he's one of the few directors besides David Mamet that knows every single person's name.
Wow.
Everybody. So
I can't even remember everybody's name. So
I know I could barely remember mine.
Yeah.
But he's a remarkable man.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. We really appreciate it. We love doing different episodes and talking to different crew positions and not just, the same writer, director, producer kind of thing. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. We'll hey Anna, do we know when this episode's gonna come out, when we're gonna drop this one? Last week of March or beginning of April is when this one will come out. So by that point in time, we'll know if the Holdovers has won or not. So we've got our fingers crossed for it. I love the film. So again, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to let you get on with the rest of your day, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, keep an eye out for the next one. The next good movie I think I did is Challengers, which is should be coming out soon. So that'll be the next good film.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to it.
Not that Madam Web was terrible. It looked great,
and it was a lot of fun to work on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. We'll let you get on with your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Cheers.
Bye.